Like most people, I'm concerned about home security. And I've run a home security solution in my house for many years. And it's been a collection of cameras and software and systems that I put together myself. And while this has many benefits, I'm going to see if I can upgrade my home security solution to something else. Hey, welcome back. So I'm Techno Tim, and today we're going to talk about my home security upgrade. And real quick, before we get started, if you have a question about anything in this video, check out my live stream on Twitch. I stream there every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so if you have a question about anything we talk about today, hop in and say hello. Oh, and another thing, real quick. Thanks ahead of time for the likes and comments because it lets me know if I'm on track. And so, let's get into it. Like I've mentioned, I've been doing my own home security for many years. I mean, I can think pretty far back to when I just had a laptop and a webcam recording the footage of my home when I went on vacation. And that's what got me excited about home security. The idea that I could check on my home when I'm away. Now, there are lots of solutions that are out there now. You can choose between different cameras, different software, and even whether or not to store your footage in the cloud, on-prem, or on-device. And for me, I've always chosen to keep it on-prem. And yes, I do value my privacy, but I've always loved the challenge of setting this up and maintaining it in my network. So I built up a whole entire collection of wireless cameras, PoE cameras, and a whole bunch of other ones, and connected them to my system that I've hosted internally. And since I've always had the infrastructure, I've always run it on another machine or a virtual machine. And that's been working great for many years. But as you know, I recently upgraded my network. So I've upgraded my home network from a variety of access points, switches, and even a network firewall that was virtualized to a UDM Pro and a Ubiquiti 24-port PoE Pro Gen 2 switch. And I've even picked up some Flex Minis that are sprinkled around the home, if you will. And so I've kind of been going all in with UniFi. I mean, the UDM Pro is a pretty nice machine. It suits all of my needs. And the switch that I paired it with, the 24-port PoE switch, has been rock solid. And so far, I couldn't be happier with the upgrade. It's allowed for me to manage everything in a single console. And that includes things like Wi-Fi, VLANs, my switch ports, firewall, and even my internet threat protection. But one thing you might have noticed in that video is that I wasn't going to use the MVR or UniFi Protect. This was because I've had a solution in place already, and I didn't know enough about their offerings. And I also complained about the single drive bay within the UDM Pro. I mean, I do feel like they could have added another drive, but that would have brought the cost up. Now, they will sell you the 4-bay MVR, which looks pretty awesome, but that's a replacement for the Protect that's in the UDM and not to supplement storage. And this is totally an aside, but there are some rumors in the forums that say that soon, UniFi may allow you to back up your UniFi Protect to an external NAS. Now, they said it's just for backups and not necessarily for storage, but I'm not going to hold my breath. So anyways, after long thought and lots of consideration, I decided to check out their cameras and see what they had. And after seeing their selection and knowing all of their technologies and some of the things they have in store for the future, I decided to pick up some cameras. And so the first ones I picked up are the UniFi Protect G3 FLEX cameras. These do 1080p 25 frames per second. These are the mini turret style, which allows me to mount these in a variety of different ways. They have infrared LEDs, which gives them night vision, and they're weather resistant and rated for outdoor use. The other cool thing about these, and one of the main reasons why I picked them up, is that they do PoE. So it does 802.3 AF, which is exactly what my switch supports. And so I can deliver network connectivity as well as power to these devices. And they can turn and tilt and swivel and come with a few mounting options. And they're surprisingly smaller than they look. And so I picked up some of these, and these will be hardwired throughout my home. The next one I picked up is the UniFi Protect G3 Instant camera. These cameras are really hard to get a hold of. I don't know what's harder right now, an AMD 5900, an NVIDIA GTX 3080, or this little camera, because it is always sold out. But fortunately, I was able to get my hands on one. And oddly, they only allow one per customer, so I was only able to purchase one at this time. But this camera is tiny. It's Full HD 1080p 30 frames per second. It can do day or night with infrared. It has dual band Wi-Fi connectivity. It has a 133-degree wide-angle lens. It has a built-in microphone and two-way audio speaker. And it also has Bluetooth, so you can do a quick setup from the UniFi app. And it's powered by an AC adapter or the Instant 802.3AF PoE to USB adapter, which is actually pretty cool because if I wanted, I could connect this to my PoE switch with an adapter to a USB to this device. And it's just an easy way to deliver power to a USB device over PoE network. But anyway, back to the camera. It's small and it's wall mountable if you'd like. And if you don't believe me on how tiny this camera is, it's really tiny. No, like really, it's pretty small. You have to see it to believe it. And for scale, here it is next to a AAA battery. And so we'll set up these cameras here in a few, but first we need to add a hard drive to my UDM Pro. And as you can see, I never put one in there to save some power. And I really never thought I would be using this system. But all you need to do is push in the tray and it will pop out. Then I attached an SSD to it. Now I know this won't give me months upon months of storage, but I feel like this is plenty for me and I don't want to use more power than I need to. And plus, I don't have any mechanical drives in my house anymore except for that big disk shelf down below. So yeah, maybe one day I can find SSDs for that too. And then maybe I'll also replace the SSD in here. But if you're looking for a large SSD, I'll have links in the description below of pretty affordable ones. And so I ended up just choosing an SSD because it's going to save me some power. And I heard it helps when you have lots of cameras to be able to scrub through your timeline if you use an SSD. And so that's the trade-off, I guess, for me, is just less storage. And so after getting the drive attached, I just pushed it back in the tray, and then the lights started flashing, and now we should be good to go. But before we configure UniFi Protect, we should probably connect our cameras. As I mentioned, I'm using PoE for some of my cameras, so I plugged them into my PoE switch. Then I changed the switch ports to my camera VLAN, and I have VLAN set up specifically for my camera. And you can see that these cameras are already on the network. That's pretty awesome. I wasn't ready for this part yet, but that's pretty cool. But as I was mentioning, I have a VLAN specifically for my cameras. And you can see here is my camera VLAN. And so all of my switch ports that have a camera connected to it will be set to that VLAN. And I have a wireless network specifically for my cameras as well. And before we continue configuring our wired cameras, let's go ahead and configure our wireless camera. So really, we only need to do a couple of things. One, get your plug, get your cord, plug it in. And then next is taking the other end and plugging it into the camera. Then we should be able to plug this in and discover it with the app. So let's do that. And so while my camera's booting up, all we need to do is download the app from the App Store. Then we'll just launch the app. And then from the app, it actually found all of our devices. So it said it found 3 devices. Here's my G3 FLEX. Here's my other G3 FLEX, and then here's my G3 Instant. So let's add all these. And so now it's connecting to the G3 Instant via Bluetooth. And I'm not really that close to it, so we'll see how it does. And now it found all of my networks, so I'm going to choose the one to join. And remember, I said I had a wireless network dedicated specifically to these cameras. And there it is. And there we go, let's join. And there we go, there's my camera. I can hear it chiming. It's downstairs, but I can hear it chiming. And so we can name these. I'll just keep the name as is for now. And it looks like there was an update for the cameras. And let's add the next one. And there's me right here. And the last one, it's a camera pointed directly at my servers. So it looks like it's updating all of these cameras, so we might have to wait a minute. Now it looks like this device is rebooting. And it looks like they're all up to date. And here we go. Here's a live shot of me. It's actually pretty responsive. And there's my living room with my little puppy Nano wondering what the chiming is all about. And here are my servers. Okay, so I guess we already have the app working. I thought that was going to be a whole entire section on just setting up the app. But the installation process was actually really easy, surprisingly fun. I mean, the app told me it found the cameras and set them up and updated them all in one step, so really awesome. So now, let's set up the rest of the app within the UniFi Protect system. So if you're running a UDM Pro, you'll just go to the IP address of your UniFi system. Here, you should see Protect running here. If you don't, what you'll have to do is go into Settings, go into Applications, and then make sure that Protect is turned on. It's probably a good idea to check for updates before you do, but make sure it's running, otherwise you won't see it in the main screen. But we'll go back and we'll go into the app, and here we're greeted with the dashboard. So one quick call out really quick that I did notice when I was setting this up, it's that the hard drive within the UDM Pro is not hot swappable. So I put a hard drive into the bay, I thought it was going to work, and it didn't. And then I thought maybe I had to format the drive or something wasn't right, but it turns out you just need to reboot the device. This is 2021, and we still have to reboot devices. But anyways, I get it, not hot swappable, but if you need to put in a hard drive or swap hard drives, you'll have to reboot the device afterwards. So anyways, here we have our dashboard. We can see events, but my events aren't triggering. And it says I have no smart detections. Now this is something I didn't know before I bought these cameras, is that only the G4 devices have smart detection. And that's okay, I don't need smart detection, and I don't want to pay 4 times the cost for some of the cameras that do support it. So anyways, if you have G4 cameras, you'll get smart detection. So we can go in here to devices and see some of our devices. I can see the live feed of my servers and go full 1080p. See the live feed of myself, and that doesn't look too great, but let's sharpen it. 1080p, there we go, live feed of myself. It's really sharp though, but pretty good for this tiny camera. And then we can look at the live feed of the wireless camera, which is my living room. And so we can go 1080p too here if we like. And so remember, that's the G3 Instant. That's the camera that's like this big. It actually looks surprisingly well for how small it is. And in devices, we actually have some more settings. So if we click on one of our cameras, we can see a lot of settings here. You can see an overview of the device. You can see a live image of that camera. And if we go into general, we have some more settings. So we can rename our device. We can toggle whether or not we want sounds. We can toggle the light on the device on and off. And we can adjust the picture with lots of controls. So if we want to turn up the saturation, turn off HDR mode, turn it back on, adjust the hue. And so a lot of settings you would see on a lot of cameras. And then we can add some overlay information if we want to. Like we can overlay the time on the device, or overlay the camera name, or overlay the logo, or overlay the bit rate. So I'm going to turn off the logo and click Apply Changes. And now we can see that overlay. So we can see the time, camera name, and the bit rate. And then we can go in recordings too, and we can tune our recordings here. We can say always record, never record, or just during motion events. So if we only wanted motion events, we could toggle that on. And then we could set the frame rate for recording too. It's set to 30, and that's going to be the smoothest for this device. But we could lower it if we'd like. But I'm going to keep it on the highest. And then we have image quality. You could turn it way up or way down. But I think somewhere in the middle is a good trade-off for storage and quality. And then we could even tune motion events if we want. So the minimum seconds of a trigger event, so this is how long that event is, it's set to 1 second. And then the seconds to record before the motion, so this is like a buffer before to go backwards in time. Let's say, for instance, I had someone go across the camera here. It may not trigger until they're in the center of the camera, but if I had a buffer or record before motion, it might pick them up as soon as they enter the room. And so record after is the same thing. So if someone walked in here and walked off, the record after would record for a few seconds afterwards. And then let's go into zones. So we can add a motion zone here. So this is pretty cool. So we can actually add a zone, like a hot zone, to say, hey, this whole entire zone should be triggerable. And so nothing in this zone right here would trigger an alert, but everything in this zone right here would. And we can do the opposite with privacy zones. So we can add a privacy zone. And so if we wanted to add a privacy zone, we could say, hey, when Tim's here on the couch, don't trigger anything. Now, this isn't a great example, but a good example would be if it was a shot of your backyard and you didn't want to record anything your neighbor was doing. You could block off that section where your neighbor's yard was. And so if you set up these privacy zones, it won't record any data for that event. It'll just be a black box. So that's pretty cool. So we have our hot zones and then we have our privacy zone. And you can see here after applying the privacy zone, here it is. So nothing's going to record. So basically all that does is put a mask over that section where the privacy zone is. So you could use this in many different ways. And last is manage, and these are operational type things. So if we wanted to reboot our camera, we could do that here. We could actually stop managing this device if we wanted to. We could change our RTSP server, which I'm not going to because it's the UDM Pro, but we could do that here. And we can disable the microphone if we wanted to. So if you didn't want to pick up audio, you would just trigger this on here. So anyways, here is where we'll see all of our cameras. We can go to the live view and see a heads up display of all of our cameras, and I'll be adding some more later. We can go into time-lapse mode for some of our devices and skip back 15 seconds and 15 seconds. I mean, I just set these cameras up, so there's not much to skip back to, but we can see a timeline and scrub through the different events for this camera. And then we have our roles section where we can set up different roles or different users. So let's say you want to give someone else in your home or your household access to your cameras, you would do it here. So you could set up a very specific role or a user that had access to certain cameras that could do certain things. So this user that I just created, I can give him access to any of these cameras. I can give him view only access to these cameras or edit as well. So this is super handy if you have other people in your home that need access to your cameras. And it's really lightweight and not a ton of features here, but this is about all I need out of this section. Just a way to give people access to my cameras. And then we have the activities section where we can see different events. And the events you'll see here are things that Protect knows about. So Protect knows about my UDM Pro because Protect is running there. You can see here where my UDM Pro was offline and then online and then back offline. That's because I inserted that hard drive and had to reboot the device. And then you can see my different cameras here were updated. So not a ton to see here, but still nice. And then in settings is where you see the only section that has dark mode. But in here, you can just see settings. So you can toggle on automatic updates if you like. You can see the changelog for the version you have. You could manage backups here and trigger some more backups. So if you wanted to create another backup of the system, just click right here. Here we go, it's created. So I have a backup. You can download and import these backups. And then the advanced section just has ways to reset your password as well as factory reset your device if you like. And in recordings, we can set up a time-based purge. So if we wanted to say, hey, we want to wait 20 days before purging our recordings, we could. And they're telling me here that the actual retention may be lower due to disk space availability. So right now I have a 500 gig SSD in here, so I might actually have less than 20 days available to purge. But here's where you'd set that if you want to. And then in alerts, we can toggle on alerts and then configure alerts. And so if I wanted to create an alert, say motion in living room, and I wanted to send this anytime there was motion in the living room, I can choose whether or not I want to send this in an email or through a push notification. But you can see you have a handful of options for alerting you. And as you can see, this section is kind of dumbed down. It's a lot less complex than any other camera system I've ever used. Most of the time on other camera systems, you have a bajillion ways to configure alerts. Yes, that's a technical term, bajillion. It's a lot. But I'm actually okay with this simplified version of alerting. Other systems I use, you had to do it per camera. You would have to dig down 3 screens deep just to configure this alert, save it, and then have to do that same exact thing for 6 other cameras. And so I know that this may be oversimplified for some, but I actually welcome the simplicity here. Granted, if you threw a couple more options in here, I'd probably check them out and test them. But this has everything I can think of that I need to know when I'm not at my home. And so it might seem like I'm settling for this, but I'm actually totally okay with this. And so if you wanted to save this, you would save the setting. And here's my alert. And now that we've actually generated some triggers, let's check them out. So here's one of me babbling. Put this in full screen. It's pretty clear. I mean, it's okay. You can see a lot of compression. A lot of my wrinkles are gone. But overall, okay for a security camera. And from here, we can actually highlight the motion if we want. And that's actually pretty cool. You can see the motion around my head right here. You can see the motion on my hand wave. And you can see a little bit of motion because the mount that I have it on right now is bouncing. But if we wanted, we could actually download this file. And if we play it now with VLC, it's actually a little bit sharper. And it has audio too. And so this turned out pretty good. I'm actually super surprised at how smooth this went. I honestly thought that this video was going to take a really long time. And I thought it was going to be a little bit more complex than it turned out to be. Turns out, it's super simple to set up. I mean, having the app alone discover the devices that just got added and automatically add those to my UDM Pro was fantastic. And the first thing it did was go and update the firmware, which is exactly what I would have done. And within 3-4 minutes of just plugging the cameras in, we had a live feed and a security system that was already capturing alerts. Now, I'm gonna be running this through the paces over the next couple of weeks. And since I have a totally separate security system and cameras, I'm gonna leave those running too. But make sure you're subscribed to see how this goes in the future. Who knows, I might be pulling the plug on this whole entire system. I totally forgot. One more thing. I feel like Steve Jobs right now. Oh yeah, one more thing. Okay, totally random, but I picked up this device. This is a little small UniFi Smart Plug. Now, it's not a smart plug in what you traditionally think of as smart plug. It's not a smart plug that I plug in to toggle devices on and off. It's actually a smart plug that I plug my fiber modem into so that if my internet goes offline, my UDM Pro will actually toggle the power on my modem to try to bring it back online. And I think that that is fantastic because unfortunately, recently, what started happening was when my UDM reboots, it doesn't reconnect back to the internet. Now, I think that might be my ISP doing something or holding on to a MAC address or an IP address or something like that. But every time I reboot my UDM, I actually then have to go back downstairs and reboot my modem. And that's great if I'm right here and I can do it. But this little guy will do it for me automatically if I'm not here. And so anyways, it has nothing to do with camera security, but everything to do with ubiquity. And so I didn't want to make a whole entire video on just this thing, but this is pretty awesome and this is going to save my butt one day. And even if it doesn't, it'll still save me from remembering to go down and reboot my modem the next time that this happens. But anyways, not related, but totally cool, but it just goes to show the types of things that Ubiquiti is thinking about. And another reason why I'm kind of going all in with a lot of their stuff. And so yeah, if you'd like to follow me along on my journey in home security with UniFi, make sure you're subscribed. And so, what do you think of UniFi Protect? What do you think about my camera upgrade? Do you think it's risky going all in with a proprietary solution? If so, let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. And if you have more questions, you can always join my live stream. I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so if you have a question about this video or any of my videos, hop in my stream and let's figure it out. So, thanks so much for watching, and till next time, stream on, my friends. You know, I want my stuff to be rounded and tell both sides of the story. And I know ranchers like, don't use this for production. Well, home production is kind of production too, to me. You know what I mean? If my Plex isn't working, I'm gonna hear about it, you know? If my lights back there aren't working, I'm gonna hear about it, you know? And so